Hey everybody, Jeff here, Aromatics, back with another pipe tobacco review. And I hope you guys don't mind that I try to keep the actual reviews straight and to the point, because when I watch videos and I'm looking at different tobaccos and stuff, I like to just usually get to the point and see what that tobacco is about. So that's what I personally like to do as well. Sometimes I do like to ramble and talk, but I usually try to keep those videos separate than the actual pipe tobaccos and the cigar journal that I do. So anyway, today the tobacco that I will be smoking and reviewing is the 2021 small batch Red Virginia with Perique. Now I also have the 2020 version as well, because I'll do a little bit of a comparison, because I know that I like to know the differences between tobaccos, like when someone else compares it to, like, say, a similar blend, especially if it's like practically the same components from the same company, just a different year. I like to know what the differences are, just out of curiosity. So I'll compare them a little bit for those who are interested. And so anyway, this 2021 version is a specific crop, and it comes from one farm by the description, and it uses the very tips of the tobacco leaf of the Red Virginia, of a Red Virginia, and orange, it says as well. So what's so special about the tips is they get the most sun. They're the thicker leaves. They're usually more robust, more flavorful. And also another interesting fact on this one is it actually talks about the sugar content in this, which is 13.53%. Now I don't know if this is kind of a little bit of a well, let me say that the 2015 crop that first came out when the small batch of Virginias, at the very beginning, you could tell it was a special crop, and Jeremy Reeves, the blender, was really hyping it up, and it was a big hit, a big success, except for that mold issue that came out for that first release. But and I'm not a huge Virginia fan, especially Red Virginias, but that one is probably one of my favorite of that style, of that, of the Red Virginias, of that family. And I think that was a one-time deal, and I think that it's hard to, and probably practically impossible to replicate. And I think Cornell and Diehl, Jeremy Reeves, he knows it, but it hasn't stopped him from trying to come up with a new small batch that's high quality. Now the 2020 I was not too impressed with. This one is quite one-dimensional. It's good if you like just those tart stone fruit Virginias, but that's pretty much all I got, was tart stone fruits, and it was a little bit sharp, and then the Perique in there is pretty low, so it's okay. I enjoy it, but this is still the first tin that I had, and I've barely touched it. I've smoked enough to know what it's like, and I don't mind it when I'm in the mood for it, but wasn't too impressed. But this one is a different beast altogether. And I think I'll get onto that in a second here. So let's give you a tin note. Tell you what I'm smelling here. So first of all, that's kind of the typical broken flake right there. It's got some pretty bright looking leaves in there along with the darks. Now the smell here is it's 50-50. You're getting kind of that, that kind of stomach juice, piquant, fermented Perique smell, and then the Virginias, that tart kind of stone fruit, bready, citrusy flavors are kind of being a little bit overshadowed by the Perique in this one. Whereas the 2020, yeah, that's bright and fruity. You get those like wine, stone fruit, and not very much Perique. You don't really get that piquant smell. So, all right, I have got my MacArthur cob packed up, and I've really been enjoying this one. It's a really good smoke as far as it keeps. It's probably the driest smoking pipe that I have, and I get a pure taste out of it as well. So this has really been popping for me with everything I smoke. So when I first opened the tin couple days ago and smoked it, I wasn't getting much there. I think it needed a little while to breathe. But since it's breathed a little bit and I've dried it out, I dry mine almost crispy. The first thing I think of is this is actually quite complex. I haven't heard anyone mention it at all, but one of the first things I got was actually a orange citrus, like almost like a sweet marmalade. So I'm getting that sweet marmalade, orange citrus, on top of those kind of sometimes sour, sometimes sweet, plummy raisin tastes. And I'm actually getting, it's quite earthy as well. And sometimes I even get like a slight toastiness that's reminiscent of, it's almost as if they added a little bit of toasty burley in there. So I really do think that Jeremy Reeves, the blender, has really found a decent Virginia with a really good complexity. Now the Perique comes across as, it's all sorts of different flavors. Sometimes I'm getting a little bit of a white pepper. You're always feeling it in the back of your sinuses. When I smoke, I always roll a little bit of it in the back of my nose. It's just habit, because I get more flavors that way. Even though I'm not totally retrohaling, I'm always slightly getting a little bit of that smoke in the back of my nose. And you can tell your nose is trying to close up. It's like, this is spite, or there's some strength to this, and you can always feel that back there. It's not smooth when it comes to the back of your nose. Not saying that's a bad thing. When you're usually smoking a Virginia Perique, that's what you're looking for, and it had to. But also that Perique, and whether or not it's just the Perique or it's the Perique mixing with the tobacco, but there's also just that kind of figgy, raisiny. Yeah, even that Perique is quite complex. So there is, it's not as tangy or as tart as last year's version, but I wouldn't consider it super sweet as either. Now I know that it lists the sugar content on that. So the original small batch Virginia, like Carolina Red Flake that came out, it said it had like a 10.5% sugar, and then the 2020 came out and it had the sugar content of 8.33, and I think a lot of people were looking at that, and since I feel this is not quite as a complex, the 2020 is not quite as a complex Virginia as the original 2015, I think people were looking at the sugar content and using that as their benchmark. So I don't know whether it was, this is just to hide the fact, or if, I don't know what it is, if it's sort of like a marketing gimmick, because I know that when people were starting to really talk about, well, this had this much sugar and this had that much sugar, that the newest one all of a sudden came out with the highest sugar content ever, and that's like the 13.53%. So I don't know if that part is a gimmicking ploy or not, because it's definitely it's not a sweet tobacco. But marketing aside and all the, small batch hoopla, is it a good tobacco? I would say if you like red Virginias, I think this, and you like complexity, you're not going to go wrong with the complexity. Whether or not it's sweet enough or it has those flavors that you like, that's up to you to decide. For me, I'm not a huge red Virginia fan. I like red Virginia when it's mixed with brights, or I like bright Virginia and Perique. I just like that sweeter kind of hay flavor. That's more what I go towards than the tart and sweet. But if I would have known that it was going to be better than the last year's version, I probably would have picked up a couple more tins, but it's not something that I'm totally interested in. Although the original 2015 small batch, I totally stocked up on that, and I love that one. That one's definitely one of my favorite Virginias ever. So I guess I'm going to leave it at that. This review went on a little longer than I wanted it to, but at least it was to the point. So I hope you guys enjoyed and appreciate that. So have any of you guys had it? Let me know down below, and I'm curious to see what you think of it. So hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you on my next one. Till then, aromatics. Peace.